Good evening, everybody, and welcome to a broadcast of the Breakdowns live weekly Alberta Politics Roundup. We're using our brand new platform for the very, very first time. So I'm going to ask if you're watching this or if you're listening to this or anything like that, please be gentle with us because learning is fun. We got a whole lot to talk about tonight, and we're going to be going to our town hall in just a little bit where we're going to get everybody to share their thoughts about the things and the stuff. But as always, we're going to run down some of the biggest stories of the last few days. And there has been a whole lot that is definitely very much worth talking about. One of the biggest stories, of course, has to be the fact that Adriana Lagrange made some major changes to regulations around schools and what school boards can do in order to protect kids. You might remember a little while ago that there was a lawsuit that was launched in order to try to make sure that kids had masking available to them. And there were some people who had some questions about why it was that school boards weren't instituting masks. That one of the results of that lawsuit was the judge actually came out and said quite clearly, hey, you know what? I know that Adriana Lagrange said that school boards weren't allowed to have mask mandates in schools, but she didn't actually have the power to do that under existing regulation. If she wanted to do that, then she would have had to do things very, very differently. She would have to change the regulations. Well, to this week, Adriana Lagrange did just that. She changed the regulations to give herself the power to ensure that there would be no room for school boards to initiate any kind of mask mandates or to move kids who weren't using masks to online learning. So the new regulations say that masking can only come from the health authority, the chief medical officer of health, but they also have said that kids have to be guaranteed access to in-person online learning. And there's some questions that exist around that. One of the biggest questions that has come up has to do with, well, what about when the masks aren't for COVID? We were sent a message from a teacher who raised the actual question. They work for the section of education that deals with trades, in effect. And they said, hey, you know what? We are doing a lot of industrial work. We're doing car work. We're doing all kinds of work that has to do with paints. There's a lot of environments that students operate in that requires them to use PPE. Well, now the Minister of Education for the province of Alberta has said, hey, you know what? Even if the rules say you have to use PPE, nothing can be more important than freedom of choice. There's just nothing more important than that. And that leaves a lot of teachers asking, okay, well, if that's the road that we're going down, if that's what's happening, then how do we deal with things like OSHA requirements? Because there are occupational requirements, occupational health and safety requirements that are very, very clear that if you're working with certain substances, if you're doing certain types of work, then you're absolutely required to have certain types of PPE. And you'll see in a lot of industrial settings, even prior to COVID and certainly after COVID, a lot of people who work in those industries follow those, legal guidelines that they have to by law. But if students are in school, how does that balance over? And that's not a question that has been answered at all. And so that's one of the things that teachers are asking about. One of the other big stories that came up this week had to do with trailers being set up at the Children's Hospital in Calgary. Now, there's been lots of media reports that talk about the fact that the numbers for respiratory illnesses, whether we're talking about COVID, whether we're talking about RSV, whether we're talking about regular influenza, whether we're talking about any of those things, the numbers for all of those things are way, way up. And we've seen reports about wait times at the Children's Hospital working up close to 20 hours. There's been 14 hours. There's been 17 hours. The wait times are a really, really long time. There's also been lots of reports about lineups literally going out the door with parents doing everything that they can to try to get the kids the care that they need and the attention that they need. But unfortunately, there's just not enough space. So one of the things that's happened, and this has been confirmed by Alberta Health Services through their Twitter account, one of the things that's happened is they've set up this trailer outside of the emergency room in order to try to, let's say, make more space for parents who are waiting. For their kids to be seen inside of the hospital, for their kids to be seen by a physician, for their kids to get treatment, all of that kind of stuff. We're now at the point where we're having to put trailers outside of hospitals. And still, the provincial government is doing nothing except for saying, well, you can do what you want. And that's really about it. But that's not the only problem. One of the other things that's happened is there are emergency measures that are being considered because of the trouble that healthcare is having with staffing, particularly at the Alberta Children's Hospital. One of the things that AHS is potentially looking at, reportedly, is things like mandatory overtime or canceling vacations. And it's important to realize that this comes after healthcare workers have already been dealing with really challenging working conditions for the last, we're coming up to 3 years now, because of the pandemic. And now, because we're just letting all of this stuff run unchecked, we're now not even asking. The language in the news story that we just had up there wasn't asking. We're now telling healthcare workers, hey, you know what? You're going to do it. I guess you're going to deal with it. Now, one of the things that Danielle Smith has talked quite a bit about is how excited she is to attract all kinds of new healthcare workers to the province of Alberta to deal with the staffing problem. But that's a really challenging sales pitch, it would seem, to say, hey, you know what? You should come to Alberta. We've got lots of jobs. And if you come, maybe your vacation will get canceled. Also, we might make you work overtime. But that's cool, right? It's not a great selling point. Couple other stories that happened in the week that we want to make sure that we touch on as well. There's been some controversy around the Danny Bucks that have been announced. So there's been a couple of economists that have stepped forward and have said, hey, you know what, these Danny Bucks of yours, this $200 or $600 over 6 months for kids, and for people who are on AISH, and for seniors and people who get income supports, for those people, it will help to kind of stop the bleeding in the short term, but it's not going to do anything for inflation, because at the end of the day, the same argument that Danielle Smith and many members of the UCP launched against CERB back in the days of COVID is you're just going to be introducing more money into the economy, and that is only going to serve to continue to drive up inflation. And given that this whole thing is to address inflation and cost of living, there's some economists that are saying maybe this isn't the greatest idea. Maybe this is just a stopgap measure. And I want to be very, very clear. There's a lot of people for whom this will be an important aid, but there's a couple of questions that still very much need to be answered. All indications seem to be that this aid is going to come after January. So for a lot of people, one of the most stressful times of the year is the silly season. And especially given the fact that we're talking about families who have kids, there's the pressure of making sure that your kids get a good holiday season, whether it's Christmas or whatever you celebrate or observe. There is that pressure to make sure that the holiday season is for your kids. But the Danny Bucks aren't going to be coming until after Christmas by all accounts. Now, one of the other questions that comes up, and I want to throw this out here to our Twitter Spaces folks nice and early, because if there's anyone who can answer this question, it would be delightful. I don't know the answer. We've had a couple of people ask us this, but it raises the very important question that one of the groups that was identified in the announcement as getting these supports were the PDD program, or people with developmental disabilities. And that has created a lot of questions inside of that community, because PDD isn't a program in and of itself that gives income supports. It gives strategies. It helps people with disabilities come up with plans so that they can live the most active and contributing to society life, rewarding life possible. But it doesn't give explicit income supports. And so that creates a question of, was that a typo? Will it actually, are they going to be giving that money to people on PDD, or will they not? If there's anybody who's listening tonight, please throw it in the comments or raise your hand once we get to the town hall part, because there's a lot of people who are asking that question. And if you're listening to this on the podcast version and you have the answer, please feel free to send us an email at info@thebreakdownab.ca, because like I said, we've been getting a few. Even if we know where to direct people to get the answer, that would be super, super helpful. But there was some levity still in the week with everything that's been going on. And we're gonna do the funny thing, and then we're gonna do the very, very dark, horrifying thing. So the funny thing is, there's a new candidate that's been announced for Livingston-MacLeod. Livingston-MacLeod has been a somewhat controversial area, because the MLA who's in that area has said, you know what, I'm not going to run again. So long, thanks for all the fish. He just doesn't have any interest in being part of presumably, I'm not speaking for him, obviously, but presumably he doesn't have any interest in being part of the ongoing clown show that is the UCP. But he said he's not running again. Now, there was somebody else who said they wanted to run there. She became the premier of Alberta and needed a spot that was open. So instead, she got Michaela Frey to step down, and she ran in Brooks Medicine Hat and won. She said two things. At times she said, hey, you know what? If you're going to run in an area, you absolutely should live there. And that's why I want to run in Livingston-MacLeod, up until Brooks Medicine Hat opened up. And then, no, it's all rural. It's pretty much the same. One of the other people who wanted to run there was a particularly problematic candidate who had run for the PPC in the last federal election. And she had some issues with temper and maybe some hate speech, kind of, maybe. I'm not a judge, can't say for sure, but it definitely seemed hate speechy to a lot of people. She was actually disqualified by the UCP. And that came as a lot of surprise to a lot of people, because she was part of the Take Back Alberta slate. She posted a picture where she was hanging out with Danielle Smith in the Take Back Alberta hospitality suite at the UCP AGM. And then she got disqualified. Well, there's a new candidate who stepped up, and that person is Don Whalen. Now, Don has had, people talk about bumpy starts to things. Don's had a pretty bumpy start to thing, because his website was a little bit challenging. This is the best screenshot that we could get of his. It's not even a question of whether or not it's mobile friendly. It's actively mobile unfriendly. The picture that you're seeing on the screen here, if you're watching on any of the video streaming, is actually an amalgam of 5 different screenshots that we had to take from a full-sized iPad Pro, I might add, in order to get the whole thing in one spot. We can't even make it really legible on a computer. So bumpy start. But where things got really interesting was Don had a section in his website, in his bio, where he was talking about that he is going to speak up, and his goal is to represent all residents of the riding and be their voice in Parliament. I'm just going to let that one hang for a second, because it's just so tasty. The guy who's running to be the MLA and represent people in the Alberta legislature put on his website that he launched with his nomination announcement that he was excited to represent people in Parliament. Now, it's also been brought to our attention, we've received a few DMs. We don't know the accuracy of these DMs at all. There's a couple of pictures of some work that's happened with people who work quite closely with another, I don't know if it's a PAC or if it's a third-party advertiser, or like what it is. We have so many of these very, very strange organizations popping up in Alberta all the time. But you've probably heard us mention the name Take Back Alberta. There's quite a few people who are at least under the impression that Mr. Whalen is in fact part of the Take Back Alberta, I don't know, second attempt, because the first attempt got all Nazi-ish. So that's our fun story. Our disappointing, I don't know, disappointing is the right word, or unsurprising how quickly it took us to get to the very bottom of the barrel. On Wednesday last week, Danielle Smith stood up in front of the province. She bought some airtime. Well, I don't know if she bought some internet time, but she definitely bought some airtime because she was on Global and CTV, and she did a roughly 10-minute address where she talked to people about, hey, everybody, here's the things and the stuff. Here's what we're going to work on. We're going to introduce all of these supports to make people's lives better. We're going to give you the $600 per kid, or if you're a senior, or if you're on ACE, we're going to give you that money. We're going to re-index ACE in January. We're going to do all of these wonderful things. But wait, there's more. We're also going to fix healthcare, and I'm really not paraphrasing that slide all that much because it was really just fix healthcare. So apparently she's going to fix healthcare. She did fire the AHS board. She did put in her own commissioner. The metrics were things will be better, so not super empirical, but what are you going to do? And she also spoke about the Sovereignty Act. She ended by saying, hey, you know what, guys? Everybody said some things in the past. Everybody said some dumb stuff. I was a talk show host, and it was my job to try to get people's attention. I talked about controversial issues. That's not my job anymore. I'm the Premier of Alberta. I'm a serious Premier. I'm not messing around. And then yesterday, on her radio program, Your Province, Your Premier, she had this to say.
You've seen the video, it's on Rumble, Suddenly Died 2022 documentary. You had a chance to watch that at all?
I've not, no. What did you take away from it?
Well, basically what it's saying is that the side effects of the vaccination shot are going to really overwhelm our medical system in the future. So we should be looking at something along that line. Because the data is coming out now from insurance companies, military, Germany, Sweden, all these other countries are releasing their data, and it's not looking good for the long term for the hospital.
Thanks for that, Don. I think we all know, anytime that there's a medical intervention, I think we all have seen the pharmaceutical ads where they tell you the benefit, but then tell you the potential side effects. And so I think we need to get a good handle on that. The government did set up a vaccine injury compensation fund. So I think they had anticipated that there would be some adverse reactions. I don't have a good handle on how much vaccine injury there has been in our province. I do know that those who had COVID and have long COVID symptoms, that it's quite similar. My view is we've got to focus on finding effective treatments, but I think you're quite right.
So, a lot to unpack there. First of all, one of the things that she said in that clip, and if the audio was a little bit distorted, like I said, it's first show on the new platform, so we're ironing some kinks out. But one of the things she said in that clip was, well, the government set up that vaccine injury fund, so the implication is that she seems to be making is, oh, they totally knew this was going to happen. And it's true with any vaccine, with any medical treatment, there's a very, very, very small statistical probability of somebody experiencing some sort of negative effect. There have been no recorded cases of any confirmed deaths from the vaccine in Canada. Last time I looked at the vaccine injury website, that was a couple weeks ago, maybe one or two might have been added. But when you consider the literally millions of doses that have been administered, that's an incredibly small number. The other thing that she seemed to lean into was the idea that, well, I keep hearing all these stories of vaccine injury, and boy, they sure sound a lot like that long COVID I've been hearing so much about, which is, again, yet another example where she had an excellent opportunity to say, hey, you know what? I don't know anything about this. Maybe I'm just not going to talk about it today. But Danielle Smith always has to be the expert in all of the things, so she had to weigh in. But perhaps what was most disappointing about the whole thing is that documentary that gentleman was referring to, the Died Suddenly, I believe it's called, or Suddenly Died. You could really flip it back and forth, doesn't matter. But the documentary that he was referring to has been completely debunked. There are no shortages of examples in the film where they just straight up made shit up. They presented videos of basketball players who collapsed, even though they collapsed before vaccines were even available. They presented videos of people that they said died. Those people didn't die. It's a fear-inducing piece of, I don't even know if you can call it film, garbage. It might be a better term, that is almost completely inaccurate. And it uses false information to make people unnecessarily afraid. And if Danielle Smith had any strength of conviction, any strength of character in regards to the importance of vaccines, if she really had gotten all of her crazy rhetoric like she said she had before, if she had dealt with all of that and she was moving forward as a serious premier for the province of Alberta, it should have been very easy for her to say, hey, you know what? The science of vaccines is actually really clear. They do make a big difference. They have a massive impact in people who experience the severity of the disease. By the way, there's an influenza outbreak going on. You should probably go get your flu shot. But that's not what she said. She validated this guy. She validated his concerns. She validated his fears. She said she would look into it. And she said that he was right. Now, this is all really quite ridiculous, and largely, to most people, I'm sure, unsurprising. But it's something that we need to do a better job of talking about, because one of the realities is Danielle Smith is incredibly persuasive to the right audience. She knows how to say just enough that the people who want to hear, oh, Danielle Smith's going to watch that documentary and she's going to totally be on our side and she's going to fight the vaccine wars with us because protein spikes or something. I don't even know anymore. The people who want to hear that can hear that. But the people who want to hear, well, she's not, maybe, she didn't want to like be mean to the guy, but she didn't say, hey, I'm 100% on board with you. She just said that he was right. She presents her information in such a way that it is open to the interpretation of the widest audience possible. This is one of the things that made Donald Trump so effective. Donald Trump was very, very good at saying one thing, countering it immediately so that the people who wanted to hear what they wanted to hear were able to hear it. Danielle Smith is using that exact same strategy, and it works on a lot of people, because as we've talked about on the show before, there are a lot of people who are very, very tired, and there are a lot of people who are very, very afraid. And Danielle Smith is absolutely, to my eyes at least, taking advantage of that in order to advance her own power. It's impossible to tell what Danielle Smith actually believes, because we saw her pay big money for a TV spot where she said, hey guys, we're going to be serious from now on. I'm going to be the serious premier that you need and you deserve. And 3 days later, she launched into bullshit anti-vaccine rhetoric that implies that hundreds or thousands or millions in the military in Europe have all of these secret figures. It really is worth, if you want to know where things are at with the province of Alberta right now, it really is worth going back and listening to last week's episode, or yesterday's, I guess, episode of Your Province, Your Premier, because not only was that included on the show, there was a conversation about a secret nuclear reactor that was set up outside of Calgary, allegedly, and then torn down by the Notley government because clean energy or something. Like, it's the conversations that are happening on this radio show are really quite stunning. And one of the most stunning pieces is these conversations are being allowed to happen. They're being broadcast on a platform that the Premier of Alberta, by her position, is validating, which should be deeply concerning to just about everybody. But I'm just a white guy on a podcast, so I'm going to bring in a couple of people who are going to hopefully help make a little bit of sense of things. We are very excited to be joined on video for the first time as I'm blocking out my own face. There we go. Much better now. Very excited to be joined by Sarah Biggs, Deirdre Mitchell-MacLean, women, because I can't say ladies. I haven't found a new word yet, and women just sounds clunky.
Gals.
Gals. Is gals okay? Can I do gals? Is that a little too 50s?
We still use dude. between
Okay,
Deirdre
cool.
and I. So
Yeah.
There we go. Just let me know what it is, because I keep tripping over myself on this introduction every bloody week. How's it going tonight?
Good.
it's
I'm
going.
chipper.
You know, I'm the perfect example that 4 doses of vaccines work.
You're sounding a lot better.
I turned the corner in like 3 days.
So for
It
anybody
was-
who's just catching up to the show now, you've only just heard about it for the first time, because we are apparently streaming on the Facebook and the YouTubes and the Twitters. Fingers crossed. I can't see it because I'm doing this, but that's what I'm told. Sarah just finished beating down a nasty little case of COVID, but she did it in impressively fast time.
Yeah, I was happy. I tested negative on Thursday. So
There we go.
Heading to Edmonton tomorrow, throwing speech on Tuesday.
Well, we're going to get to that in a sec, but before we do, there's a couple things that I just want to touch on.
Yeah.
Because there's one other little story that made me a little angry this week, and it involved my good friend Sarah Biggs. Theo, you're wrong, man. You're wrong. And you know what else? I think you might be a coward. I'm not sure. But when you deliberately use your platform to target someone, and I saw some of the messages that Sarah got, Theo, it's not a good look. It's not good.
It's a good thing I worked on a UCP campaign, because my skin toughened up a little bit. It's nasty. I would like to thank my psychiatrist for putting such a good dose of anti-anxiety medicine and antidepressants, but it is nasty for someone who cannot or does not know how to deal with this. It's insane. Like, it's really like, I got like words like cunt, bitch. I got a few freaking flyers on my work email, and my business partner and I we made a decision like a few months ago to remove my cell phone number from our website. Thank God. Because there's a lot of Yahoo couch on Friday night or Friday afternoon when I was live, they were all watching CBC, but CBC's the devil. And
yeah, Theo, we know you watch CBC now, so you're not fooling anyone there, bud.
Watch CBC. And they did a little goo with my name, and then they found me, and then they took the time to type in my email address and send me, some sentences that you could barely,
See, here's the thing, and here's the main message that I want to get out, and then I'm gonna tell Deirdre my joke that I told you earlier this week, because I'm still so very proud of it. It's okay to disagree with people. It's okay to hold different positions from people, but when your reaction, when your impulse to these things is, you know what, I'm just going to find the most offensive thing that I can think of. I'm going to take the time to send that to someone, and I'm a real hero now. Not only are you not the hero you think you are, but you're even more wrong.
Yeah, but you know what makes me feel special, though? It's that, Theo tuned in for the first time on CBC in 2 years just to listen to me.
Just for you.
That was Theo. Thank you.
I think they call that a
much.
draw.
Thank you so much, Theo. I really appreciate it. Am I frozen?
Nope, you're still going.
Oh, weird, because I'm frozen on my screen. No.
Deirdre, what do you call it when an ex-Calgary Flame and an ex-Olympic figure skater get up to start a freedom fighting? Some people say it's a grift.
I have no idea.
It's a fire sale.
I've
been saving that one up for like 3 days. I told Sarah because we were talking about everything that happened, and I was like, you know what? That one's going on the show. I don't even care. It's going to be the dad joke. I'm fine with that. That one's going on the show.
It was,
beautiful.
Just be better. My mother was concerned for my kids. I was like, it's
Yeah,
okay.
and see, that's
Because it was not a popular subject, let's be honest, on national television. But at the end of the day, guys, it is what it is. You need to get out of your bubble. Like, really, we need to wake up here. There's no conspiracies. There's no, Trudeau did extremely well on Friday. The lawyer from the Freedom Convoy was asking him if he was missing her yet today because she tried to do a mic drop, but it was more of a sad trombone. I don't know, man. Just be better. Let's, move on.
Well, the kicker to me is like you were on the show here on Wednesday and you were like, hey, you know what? Danielle Smith crushed that speech. We're going to get to that in a second. But you're like, Danielle Smith crushed that speech. Deirdre was like, Danielle Smith crushed. Even I was like, you know what? She did well. But 2 days later, you're like, and you know what? The other guy did good too. And that all of a sudden you're a I'm not going to use any of those.
Well,
I don't use those words.
One day I'm a conservative, the other day I'm a communist. So,
Well, you got options, I guess, is the silver side. But let's start with, and I'll go to you first, Deirdre, the clip that we played where we heard Danielle Smith, and I just did a big long rant about it because I'm really angry about it. But the clip that we played, we're talking 3 days after Danielle Smith got up on provincial television and the world on the interwebs and said, hey, guys, I'm done with all of the crazy. I'm serious now. She comes out with, I'm going to entertain these conversations, validate them. And yeah, the feds, they knew about the vaccine problems because they set up that injury fund. Deirdre, what do you make of all this?
So we had a good laugh, pre-recording, because I saw that clip and I thought, oh, like Nate must have found an old call-in from the Danielle Smith show. And he's like, no, that was yesterday. I'm like, oh, okay. So
it's not great.
It's not. But one of the biggest strengths that Danielle Smith has is her ability to make someone feel like they are listened to, heard, and in some ways validated just by the fact that she's listening to them. I actually, when I listened to it again, after you said, yeah, no, this was yesterday. I listened to it again and I thought, she really does do that well, where she's like, no, I didn't. What did you get from it? Tell me about it, kind of thing. And, yes, she gets into trouble when it comes to the analysis portion, which is, well, the federal government set up this program. Yeah, well, it wasn't just for COVID vaccines. It was, hey, you know what? Like vaccines are not 100% safe. There are risks. It's like, one in, I don't think it's quite as high as 1 million, but it's really high, it's really low what the potential for adverse reactions are. Now, so the like setting up that fund in my mind wasn't because they were like, yeah, they know there's problems. No, setting up that fund was, hey, people are worried about this, and here's something that we're going to put together and say, if this happens to you, we're going to take care of you. Right? That's what that was all about. So, I mean, yeah, using that as justification for vaccine injury. And yes, what Buddy was saying is something that I did hear during the pandemic. The great conspiracy is that those of us who had the vaccine, well, we have 3 years to live. Okay, so if we had the vaccine in 2021, then 2024 we will all start dropping like flies, because you've got to give it enough time. That you can't be proven wrong right away. It's got to fester a bit, has to grow and really bring in the fear. But
is there
yes,
like a glowing jewel that's going to appear in my hand or something? Because
that's a Logan's Run joke. 3 years. Yeah, 3 years. 3 years is what they gave us. So it's not new. This part of it isn't new. That documentary, like, wow, I haven't watched it. I don't think I'll ever be able to bring myself to watch it. I can read something that's kind of out there. But, you know, in the first paragraph, if I see 2 or 3 things that I'm just like, this is too much already. So I don't think I'll ever be able to watch the documentary, but I have been keeping up with the fact checking. That's been great. So, but I mean, yeah, like Smith offering, you know, tell me more about this thing that I know nothing about, which actually reminds me a lot of Kenny when he used to say, oh yeah, I haven't read that. I have no idea what that's about, but you know, I'm sure that the people who need to are doing something about it, which always struck me as not likely. And I'm sure Danielle Smith has probably seen it, but again, if it's new Danielle Smith, new premier, you know, she might try to distance herself a little bit, but she is still going to offer that space and that time and that attention to people who want to talk about it.
Sarah Biggs, one of the big words, one of the big phrases, the terms that we hear used so often is the importance of message discipline. I guess the question that I have is, which Danielle Smith is the disciplined one? Is it the one who read off of the script on Wednesday, who all of us said, hey, she actually did really, really good? Or is it the one who we heard on your province, your premier, whether you want her or not, apparently?
Should I flip a coin? Danielle on script. That premiere needs to be in a very, very controlled environment to avoid any gaffes. So this week I sent a lot of feedback on the Twitterverse saying that, you know, Deirdre and I totally trashed the NDP for 45 minutes. And we were solely talking about messaging and how messaging was conveyed. Now, yesterday was a very good example when messaging goes off the rail because your premiere is not on script. It was terrible yesterday. When I called you earlier this afternoon, I was like, wait, that's still a thing? So I found it and I listened to it. And
did you know about the secret nuclear reactor?
It's probably my basement. I just didn't tell anyone yet. No, it's probably at the Chicken on the Way basement. That's where the new nuclear reactor is.
We need to be careful about making jokes about what's being hidden in the basement with some of the
right?
the rhetoric that's being thrown, I feel like.
There's nothing in my basement. You can come and chat. There's nothing. There's a bar and a foosball table. But no, seriously, when Miss Smith is on script and she is scripted in a controlled environment. She's not steering off what she is supposed to communicate. She's fine. When a lot of people with divergent opinions are calling in, and she's also, I feel like she's trying to be a people pleaser. So she's not, you know, she's trying to be a good listener, but she's trying to be a good people pleaser at the same time. And she doesn't want to get into a fight. But we need to stop. Like, it's got to end, man. It's, so, you know, it's going to give up for the NDP, but if they can use it.
Well, we're going to get to that in a sec. That's a beautiful pivot that you just handed me there. But... you know, I find myself, I can't help but wonder, you know, it's pretty clear that when Danielle Smith is speaking, I don't know, candidly, that she has some controversial viewpoints that she feels like that are worth sharing. And she feels like she, you know, as you said, she does the people pleasing and she does the enabling and all of the, oh yeah, no, that's definitely, yeah, no, for sure. That seems to be part of her wheelhouse. Is it possible? I mean, the only time that we've seen a Danielle Smith that didn't go into those weeds was on Wednesday last week. Every other time, even at the UCP leadership race, you can tell that there was like a poor teleprompter person who was like, crap, I got to hit pause because she went off on a tangent. it seemed like the stakes of that address on Wednesday were high enough that she decided to be a good poodle, but the rest of the time she doesn't. Do you think she's even capable of staying on message?
She can.
She is. She's capable.
But she is capable. She can, 100%.
Why doesn't she?
But you got to make sure that Nate still making this on cameras just makes it so much worse. When there's people and they're telling you, no, you cannot say that, because 75% of the province does not think like you, and you need to appeal to everyone in a controlled environment, Danielle is doing fine. When it's Danielle from High River that is talking about the great 2013 gun grab, it's different.
Okay. Well, so this tees up the next question, because I remember thinking, and I think we talked about this on Wednesday, the idea of, maybe she has changed the channel. Maybe she has, with her apology and her, hey guys, that was just my talk show host days. We were all crazy in college. I thought maybe she had changed the channel away from that. But it seems like yesterday she was like, no, I really liked that first show, and changed the channel back. That kind of ruins the reset that she did, the great reset that she did, perhaps. But the question is, that seems like something that the NDP and their team would want to jump on. But today, the messaging that we saw from the NDP was the price of margarine. Deirdre, what am I missing here? Because let me tell you that when that tweet went up, there were some people who had some very strong opinions about, hey, you should not be saying that the NDP shouldn't be talking about margarine right now. I don't know. I feel like maybe the healthcare crisis, or the pediatric health emergency, or the premier who says words are all
calling for mask mandate.
Yeah, but Deirdre, what am I missing?
So, for whatever reason, the brain trust that is running strategy for the NDP is like, we need to be able to better reach conservatives, and conservatives are really concerned about cost of living, and they're really concerned about the affordability. And so we're going to talk about affordability, and we're going to talk about the cost of living. However, when the NDP starts talking about investigating the prices that are being, in the grocery stores, what people hear is not, we care about how much it costs, right? What people hear is, what are they going to do? How are they going to take over the stores? How are they going to force the stores? Like, are they going to do price fixing? Are they because that's the fear mongering. That's what people think. The NDP has a very strong platform for public services. There's a healthcare, the whole healthcare thing, the whole education thing that they can be focused on, that is right in their wheelhouse, that Albertans are saying, we really care about this. Affordability, yes, you know what? It is an issue. So stick to the things that the NDP did, like insurance caps and electricity rate caps. Stick to the things that they did, and don't allow the UCP to go, the NDP is going to nationalize frickin' Loblaws. Okay, like why are you opening yourselves up to this? Oh, end rant.
Sarah, What do you think about this? I mean, like it's when I saw that, I mean, Deirdre got to where my head got pretty quick in that idea of like, okay, so we're doing bread lines now. Is that what we're doing? Which is not the great, given how often people like to be the NDP communist / socialist menace, rana, leaning into we're going to control the price of food is maybe not the best.
Let me have a candy for that one. So, here's the thing. The first thing, and I'm more conservative than I'm on the left. I'm a fiscal conservative, but I'm very, very pro everything else. So, the first thing that came to my mind is, oh, no, you can't question why a corporation is making X amount of profits. As a government, the last thing you want to do is ask, I'm wondering why Loblaws making too much money and we got to put a stop to this, friends.
Right? That's what you hear.
Not how it freaking works. Because 70% of the province will be like, well, fuck, they're trying to reach out in Loblaws' pockets. But Loblaws is no frills. Loblaws, Superstore, Holt Renfrew, Joe Fresh, and a lot of other companies. It's a big corporation. So at the end of the day, I think that they need to switch their messaging. And yes, everything has increased because, canola oil, a bushel of canola a while ago was like $550 and shot it up right up to $850. Why? Ukraine. Everything is up. There's a drought in California right now. Vegetables are going to be extremely expensive. So us, as Albertans, what should we say? Well, let's explore more hydroponic culture in the province because we could do it. Let's explore greenhouses because we can do it. Let's try to be more sufficient on the agriculture level so we are not impacted too much by the swings, the high and lows of international food prices. That's what we should be saying, really. And then at the same time, hey, nice thing to do. You're cutting off your carbon footprint because you're not importing your avocados from Mexico or California or Peru, or your peppers are grown in Leduc, like the potatoes in Lethbridge, like the tomatoes, like the lettuce. We have a great Alberta company lettuce that we have that are, providing to Costco and everybody else. So instead of being like, we're going to be launching an investigation, it's going to cost a lot of money. We're going to be spending a lot of time for what to say. Maybe Mr. What's his name? Weston, you spent, you took in maybe a little too much profit. We don't like rich people. Well, no, be innovative. Try to find a goddamn solution for once. Sorry, ran over. I'm going to finish my candy.
I love the cadence that you had going down on that one. But it does raise an interesting question because we do live, by and large, in many ways, in a free market economy. There are checks and balances on it, for sure. There are regulations, for sure. As most people argue, there should be. We shouldn't be able to sell T-shirts soaked in, lead. That's a bad idea, even if you can get them cheap. Those regulations are important. But when you're talking about, when you look at the major companies, and using Loblaws as an example, are they making record profits? For sure. Are they making those record profits because they did an exceptional job of squeezing out all of the mom and pop shops by offering lower prices on just about everything for an extended period of time that everybody went and did go buy stuff from in part? Yup. So there's many.
It's a double standard.
Yeah. Oh no,
they are not going after the oil and gas company to be like, oh my, why did you cash in $12 billion in the last quarter? Why is your shareholder price increased? Why do you have a whole lot of buybacks? And why your dividends $2 a share? They're not going after the oil and gas companies. You're trying to make a change. Bring real policies to the table. Stop going after the company because they're making money. Fuck. Sorry.
Spicy Sarah tonight. I dig it. But it is, you raise a very good point in that, I'm trying to think of any recent examples where I've heard anybody in the NDP say, our star is a terrible idea. It's a scam. Why are we pursuing it? That to me, I mean, here's what I'm trying to get at, and this is what I want to hear from both of you. And I used this line with you earlier, Deirdre. I'm going to use it again. But why is it that the NDP seems to be going after all of the expensive produce when there's low-hanging fruit they could get for cheap?
Right. Well, okay. So I guess one other thing that I have to say about the brain trust that's doing the NDP strategy is that the things that they think they are going to get attacked by conservatives for are not the things that conservatives are going to attack them for. Okay, so there's this, and this should be pretty obvious actually. But you know how when you're listening to a conservative say, well, this is what the left thinks, and you can listen to it and go, wow, is that ever off? Well, the same when the NDP is sitting, or when the NDP is sitting and saying, well, this is what the right is going to do to us, or is after, or whatever, and you're like, no. So there's this great disconnect between we think you are the most awful beings, and you will attack us on this, but that's not. It's just not the high. It's not the high priority for either side. So the low hanging fruit. I mean, like I said, where is your strength as an NDP party? As an ND party, as an ND party, your strength lies in provision of public services. You can talk about your record of being fiscally responsible, fiscally prudent. They were one of the most fiscally conservative governments that Alberta had in decades.
Well, and they can own healthcare right now.
They could, exactly. Like they don't even have to hit the low-hanging fruit, because they could just sit back and go, this is what we have done. You know that you can trust the NDP with your healthcare. You can trust us with your education, and ensuring that it is delivered, to everyone, that everyone has access. The low-hanging fruit of what the Conservatives are doing, look back to Jason Kenney in 2017 and 2018, right up until the election. He set the narrative even then, and the governing party was on the defensive. Stop being on the defensive. You actually need to act like you're ready to form government. So stop responding to what they're doing and start telling us about your strengths and working on your own, and pushing your own record and using that as a platform for what you're going to do in the future. But that's the lowest hanging fruit.
Like, don't see this as an NDP bashing, okay? We're offering free professional consulting here. We're really trying to say, look, guys, this is not working. This is not the way you should be going.
Do better.
Do better, because you need to do better, because the province needs you to do better. And I think that's, sorry, my cat is trying to bite my foot. So his name is Lord Fluffington, the joys of life. So
I'm so glad we're doing video. Lord Fluffington is messing with the show, and I love
it. But here's the thing. Simple is better, less is more. A video of two MLAs making $130,000 a year, saying that margarine went up by 40%, will not have the same impact as clear, straightforward messaging. It will not. It's low tone deaf. I understand where they come from. But right now, again, it's only on Twitter. I don't know. I don't see them on Facebook. I guess they're not targeting me these days for their geo. But less is more. Simple is better. Keep what they need to keep with their strength and what they can hit home runs with. Not trying to branch out and come up with some fancy investigation on why a corporation is making too much money according to them. Like, guys, scrap the messaging, start from scratch, please. Please, please, please.
Well, this is, you raised in there a little bit of an interesting point that I want to highlight, Sarah, about the fact that this is not, as much as I have been told a lot today, that the NDP bashing is unacceptable. This isn't NDP bashing. That's not what this is at all. This is, and I want to be really clear, the breakdown is not on anybody's team. We're not in anybody's pocket. There's no like, oh, well, you're with that political party, so I guess we'll just like, yeah, like, again, the choice of video. But, there's nobody gets a pass. That's always been the rule here. And so if the NDP is coming into this incredibly important election with messaging that is, maybe resonates a little bit with their core base, but for all of the people who are looking for a political home or that kind of stuff, it's got to be more than just, the margarine guys. Like, that's just, it's not enough. It's not enough.
No.
My
No.
dudes.
Think of the margarine.
Who was the king? Who was that imperial
Yeah,
butter?
the imperial.
Or imperial margarine?
Yeah.
Yeah, and used to appear and stuff. It was just like that. That's where you're going if you're going to make margarine your centerpiece. Okay? No.
I use Bessel olive oil.
But but yeah, I just wanted to sort of highlight that it's not about, hey, we're going to dunk on the NDP because, boy, we hate the NDP. Because if you have not been paying attention to what the breakdown has been doing with Danielle Smith, I don't know what to tell you, man.
We have not been kind. But, there's a freaking trailer at the Children's Hospital right now in Calgary because, well, that's okay. RSV and COVID are just going to rip through. There's zero ventilation, that goddamn trailer. That's one. Two, all the unions, healthcare unions, met in the past few days to put on contingency plans if shit hits the fan. That should be what we are addressing right now, because God forbid if my 2-year-old daughter needs to go to the hospital this week, I'm dreading it. Take what is easy to get. Take what is easy to spin. Don't start meddling in financial statements. Enough, right?
I just got to take a sec because I can see the comments that are coming in on here. Which
okay, good. That's what I wanted you to do.
But
oh God,
there's a comment on here that I have to share because I can't believe I missed this joke. Air Mitch 1 says they need to do butter.
Shit.
Yeah. They started with agreed. Come on, Notley, do better, and then and then it kind of sat for a second. They need to do butter.
Now we're on the butter versus margarine debate. This is where this goes, NDP. If you want to spend all your time arguing about what's better, butter or margarine, this is where it goes. Can we please talk about healthcare and education?
I like grass-fed butter, but
I also wanted to give a shout out to Angie because where I was going with it, I'm not sure if I actually finished that, but Angie did it for me. R-Star, I think one of the reasons why they haven't jumped on it, and even though they should, but Angie said if the NDP went after oil and gas, there would be exploded heads and the permanent smell of burnt hair in the air. And that's exactly kind of what I was thinking when I originally when I was responding to that, because we were talking about oil and gas, and that would just be a natural response from conservatives, right? So
I feel like if you're going to go after a corporation, going after them for being successful which is in effect what it is. When a corporation makes money, they're doing what they're supposed to do. If you're surprised by that, I've got some really bad news for you. But that's what corporations are supposed to do. That's why they protect their own interests. But if you're going to go after a corporation for something, maybe it's not they're making money. Maybe it's they're not following through on their responsibilities to Albertans, and they're causing chronic health issues for people.
Yeah.
They're causing environmental damage for people. They are writing checks that generations are going to be spent paying off the interest on because they didn't follow through on their responsibilities.
Right.
Why is that not the thing? Why is it but the margarine?
But you know, if I want to get metal into like businesses and all that, my dudes, let's start something like Hydro-Quebec and let's nationalize the electrical grid. Why not do that? That would be meaningful. That would be useful. Let's look into hydro and small nuclear reactors. Like, let's do something constructive here instead of trying to go after whale and gaze. I can't.
Deirdre, I'm gonna throw it out to the Twitter Spaces. One of the things that I was hoping to be able to test tonight is whether or not I can get audio on from the Twitter Spaces onto the video. So if there's anybody who would like to tell us to stop talking about margin or anything, I mean, that check's got to be in the mail. But if there's anybody who'd like to say something on the Twitter Spaces, I'd love to know if I'm able to get the audio piloting through here because it is the very, very first run. But while we wait for a brave soul to raise their hand, Deirdre, anything? It's been a couple weeks because we've been so ranty since we've done the federal file. So what's going on with the feds? Anything exciting happen in federal politics this week?
Yeah,
Sarah just checked out.
Anything at all? There's
I'm going for a coughing fit.
There's so the emergencies inquiry, or the inquiry into the Emergencies Act, has been ongoing now for, what are we on? We're on day 28 or something like that. Like it's actually been going on for quite a while. But Trudeau was, as we alluded to earlier, Trudeau spoke, did his testimony, and I didn't see it actually because I was doing a thing with the University of Lethbridge for that, or sorry, on media and democracy, and so that was great. But it started, and I was trying to catch up to it, and I couldn't. But this is something that has been. It's been ongoing. I mean, it is like I said in the beginning. This is just this massive, reality version of the movie Vantage Point, and I think it's fantastic that we get to see all of this. But the inquiry is actually tasked with trying to weigh the rights and responsibilities of each side. Now, I know where I think it should go, but I'm going to, I'll wait and see what they say before I start complaining about it. It is still ongoing. I honestly don't know when we're going to get an answer because they have so much testimony to go through, and it has been pretty constant. So that's one thing. Like I said, still ongoing, and they do put the testimonies live, as I'm sure that you may have seen some of the clips on Twitter, the good ones. But other than that, the other thing that I wanted to bring up was it was started by a tweet from the Beaverton, and it was the Beaverton brings the news. So it said, editorial, I'm a true Canadian patriot, and that's why I'm supporting Chinese dictator Xi Jinping in his dispute with Justin Trudeau. That has been kind of this vantage point of conservatives saying things like, Trudeau got his ass handed to him and all of this, and the other side saying, no, Trudeau stood up for the fact that we are transparent right? There wasn't leaked conversation. It was Trudeau saying, I had this conversation because that's how we do it here. Like that's how our government is supposed to work. And so, I mean, really interesting conversation going on over that as well. And yeah, it's I like the way that the Beaverton put it, right? If you're a true Canadian patriot, I hate to break it to you, but you can't support the other guy, even if you really don't like Trudeau. That's just not how it works. If you're a Flames fan, then you don't suddenly show up and start cheering for the Oilers. It just doesn't happen, right?
Well, it does as soon as the Flames get kicked out of the playoffs.
But it's not. It's only a little. It's less cheering and more just okay, Canadian. All right, yeah, it's not real cheering. Come on.
I would like to salute Trudeau's perfect trolling Friday morning of doing almost 45 minutes of testimony in French. That was beautiful.
Oh yeah. And Trudeau's not speaking in French, so no one can understand him. It's like, or
and all those numpties. Thanks, Jay, for the term. The numpties are complaining that well, we can't understand you speaking French.
Do you remember, Sarah? Do you remember this happened like I think the week before when Miller?
That was 3 weeks ago when
3 weeks ago when
the
he
French
was like,
Canadian dude.
Like when he was like, okay, I guess maybe if we can like have it, can we have it translated for him because obviously he can't understand me. He's responding in French, and then Buddy turned around and was like, yeah, okay, and basically he responded in English after. It's just like. Yeah, but I believe he's a Quebec MP, and that's why he was speaking in French.
He is. But that, in a nutshell, what we've seen, English versus French versus, is the perfect nutshell of living in the National Capital Region.
And viewing it from Alberta, because man, yes. Thanks, Angie. No accent.
I loved it. I was like, oh, this is. But you know what? Good for Trudeau. It's his first language. Why not? If he's more comfortable answering complicated questions in French.
But they go back and forth. Like haven't they been going back and forth? I mean, the Prime Minister usually does, right? Jason Kenney even did it just to show off the fact that he could, right? There was no reason for Kenney to go back and forth between French and English.
That's how we got him on abortion last spring. It was in French because we knew Madhu couldn't speak English. Do you remember, Deirdre? You were there.
Wait, Madhu couldn't speak French.
So
Madhu does okay in English.
The CBC reporter asked Premier Kenney in French if Bill 17 would be inclusive of abortion. Yeah. That was sweet. But, sometimes it serves its purpose. And it served it well. Like those guys on the other side, like the other media, and I'm not going to name because they're not my friends. They really lit their hair on fire for 2 hours. They totally lost it. And it was hilarious to watch. It was so... it's the full outrage. The outrage du jour, however we want to call it. I mean, you just see these things kind of coming out of I guess, right field. And then you have the French Canadian going on English CBC to comment about the inquiry.
There we go. I wanna ask 2 more questions, and then we're coming up to our hour and a half hard line.
Candy?
I'm good, thank you. I'm trying to watch my figure. But to each of you, and I'll let you fight over who goes first. What garbage documentary is Danielle Smith going to prop up next? Because there's been a few.
It's been released yet. I don't think it's been released yet. I expect it will be something that shows up within the next year, because right now I'm thinking she's still going to be premier in the next year.
So, which, as a follow-up for you then, Deirdre, which one of her staff and or elected officials will be part of the making of that documentary?
Right. Oh, they'll come in for cameos. Because why not? Yeah, I do fear that this level of professionalism that we, got a glimpse of potential from our premier could very well be short-lived if they are successful in winning the next election.
Sarah?
It's going to be something about China because, there's a lot of protests over there right now, and everybody's asking why,
COVID
they
zero.
they're comparing the people protesting about the Chinese policies to like the Freedom Convoy. Hey, they found their match. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's going to be something about that. How there weren't too many people in China, and they tried to bioengineer something to. I don't know.
Okay, no, that's fair. And which is it going to be a staffer or an elected official that's going to be appearing in that documentary?
Oh, none. Kian Bexty.
See, I was trying to decide whether or not to make that joke. It was in the back of my head because
Kian, because I can do it. That's fine.
Yeah, man, that picture this week, that was not a good.
Again, look at my pinned tweet. The most amazing comment in response to a stupid thing that Keen Bexty said. Just chef's kiss.
We're gonna have to look that up.
I'm going now.
Go into the last rounds here. Deirdre, anything that you think people should be looking at? Anything people should be paying particular attention to for the next 3 days before we do our next show? Because that's the pace that we live at now. God help us all.
I'm going to pass that straight to Sarah because Sarah has the thing we will all be watching. And Sarah's going to be there.
I got a big week this week. Like
what's going on?
I don't know. Apparently, I've been invited to the throne speech. It said that the premier. Hold on. How did they say that in the invitation? And I really don't want my invitation revoked. I'm really thankful for that. But it says that the premier and the government of Alberta request the pleasure of your company. I don't think she knows I'm coming, but that's okay. We actually can say hi to each other. And then there's the press gallery thing this week. And then there's oh yeah, Deirdre, I need to talk to you about that. And then, the throne speech is really going to give us the direction of the government for the next 5-6 months. And it's not going to go further than that.
Fair enough.
Because I got it confirmed that it's going to be a go for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go. Like now for our audience here, that's a pretty big firebomb you just threw into the middle conversation. So I'm going to do the communication thing. And no, you're not going to get sued. That's what I do. But you're saying you have it confirmed that there will be an election in May of 2023.
Apparently that's what they're looking at right now.
Well, that should put some hearts and minds probably at significant ease, and I imagine some other people who maybe, I don't know, work in the comms department for the NDP at significant anxiety.
This week because I said that today just to make me look stupid because I'm super big into like conspiracy theories against me. So we'll see what happens.
Well, here, let me help you with that. It's going to be May 2024. Okay. See, because now they're going to make me right or they're going to make you wrong. I think we know which way that pendulum swings.
But no, it's going to be, we're going to see what's going to happen. We're going to have a lot of clarity on education. The School Boards Association rejected the voucher system at 98% last week, right when Minister Lagrange paid them a visit. That was good timing. So no, it's going to be very interesting to see. It's going to be a busy week. And then we're going to be seeing, probably I'm expecting either Tuesday afternoon or maybe Wednesday, the Alberta Sovereignty Act in the United or whatever confederation is going to be out.
All the flavor, none of the calories.
It's diet. It's like
diet
my
sovereignty.
Wakanda forever. But so we'll see if it's gonna come out this week. But I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm gonna try to put my hand on a Hansard, so I can have the full law in front of me. Because just for remember, when Bill 81 passed, so Bill 81 is this thick, and usually a regular. What's that?
Which one was 81 again?
It's the Election Statutes Amendment Act that they passed at 2:00 in the morning last year. Yeah.
I'm like, I know this, and it was important. What? Help me out.
Usually a bill, guys. Here. Usually a bill is this thick.
So you're looking at like what? A quarter of an inch compared to 3-4 inches?
It's like an Archie comic versus War and
that
Peace.
One's 3/4 of it. That one has, let me tell you how many pages that one has. I have a lot of notes in it because I need to know it by heart. That one has 159 pages.
Yeah, that's a big bill.
It's a big bill. So it's going to be interesting to see how big they're going to be coming out with the ASA.
And whether or not the Sovereignty Act stands alone or if it is thrown in
It'll
with...
stand alone. She said it's going to be built on...
It's like the healthcare reform is going to be compliant with the Canada Healthcare Act. Come on.
We'll see. I'm looking forward to it.
Right.
And I know that we're going to have I'm hoping that they drop the first draft on Wednesday so that we can have a spirited and robust conversation. Right. Should be good times. Sarah, I wish I had been thinking a little bit farther ahead because I would have had you take a breakdown shirt up there to give to Mr. Kenny as a parting gift. But I don't on that
Jason, last time Jason saw me, it didn't go that well.
Just send it straight over to the constituency office, Nate.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, well, no, Jason, last time he saw me, he was like, he ended up the conversation pretty quick.
Oh, dear.
Because he realized I changed my name and it didn't make the click.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and clear the room, but watch the people on the Twitter machine can't see this, but for everybody on video, are you ready? Boom, check that out.
Oh.
So I want to say a big thank you to a little anticlimactic. I want to say a big thank you to everybody who has listened to the show tonight, whether you've been listening on the Twitter Spaces, whether you've been watching on YouTube or Facebook. We've been getting some fantastic comments coming in through YouTube and Facebook, which is great because it means that the hours I spent banging my head into a wall trying to get this video thing to work is worth it. But I want to make sure that we get now that we've got Deirdre and Sarah on the video, I want to get them some nice microphones maybe. So one of the best ways that you can help make that happen is by supporting us at our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/thebreakdownab, where for the price of a fancy muffin, not a broken in half muffin, a full muffin, you can sign up and help us to get them the microphones that they deserve, those microphones. So you can do that through our Patreon page. If you're listening to the podcast version of this, if you wanted to leave a rating, perhaps a review, that would be delightful. And yeah, I just want to say a big thank you to everybody for their support. I also want to say a big thank you in particular. I know that there are quite a few people who hopped on the Theo Fleury being a horrid human being towards Sarah from the Breakdown audience. I love to see it. It's you know what the world needs is less bullies. I mean, we can have disagreeing conversations. We can have differences of opinion, but if you can't not be a dick, then you maybe shouldn't be in the conversation.
You can disagree without being disagreeable.
That's a nicer way to say it. I mean,
as would Spencer Bennett say. You
Oh.
can disagree without being disagreeable? That's what Spencer says a lot. Just saying.
well, irony's fun, but
I don't know. I'm just quoting.
Deirdre,
French.
any last words before we go?
Last words. Let's go with tomorrow's another day, and whatever that holds, there'll be another day after that.
Hopefully.
You're
Sarah?
welcome.
I'm gonna be live from Edmonton on Wednesday night. Oh no, I'm supposed to have a Danielle Smith fundraiser.
On Wednesday night?
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Let me see what I don't know. I haven't fixed all my schedule yet. But, I kind of want to go because
Big deal.
it's
Well,
a thing. But
if Deirdre and I have to hold the fort down, Deirdre, you might be stuck with just me.
Maybe I'm just going to tune in live for the premiere. Who knows?
I don't think I want Danielle Smith on the show. I don't think, because here's the thing, and I said this, this is going to be my last thought, but I said this before. I am happy to have conversations with anyone on the show. I'm happy to do interviews with anyone on the show. But if it's just going to be you being disingenuous and lying for the entire in the entirety of the interaction, I don't want to do that. That's boring. It doesn't accomplish anything. It doesn't move the conversation forward. If you're going to just show up and be fake and lie, then I don't want to have that conversation. And I have very little faith, particularly after yesterday, that Danielle Smith would be able to have a sincere conversation on the breakdown. So
there's an interesting comment on the chat right now. I'm sorry.
The missed the first hour.
Yeah.
It's okay. You can rewind. There's a little scroll bar bottom on the bottom. I want to say again, huge thank you to everybody, especially for working with all of the technical fun that we've had tonight, because it's our first video show. We're only going to get better. So thank you, everybody. Take care of yourselves. Be kind. Don't write horrid words on the Twitter machine, and keep the conversation going.